Hi there, this is Tyler, and I'm playing with, well, if you watch much of my stuff, you know I play with the Gauntlet a lot, and these are two of my favorite human beings in the whole wide world. Members of Gauntlet with me, Ryan and Lou, going to be playing, we're playing for Codex-Files. We're playing Fireships at Midnight from Codex-Flame, which has the distinction of something that I wrote. And this will be the first time that I've ever actually played it. So that's going to be kind of fun. And want to start by saying, of course, we have some safety tools in place. In general, I've not seen that be an issue for most anything in this game. But we have the Gauntlet inclusivity policy, which means, of course, we're all here as friends. We're here to support each other, to be generous, to have the best time. We're here to enjoy each other's company. You know, and that means respect. It means if something gets a little tense and you need to step away, that's perfectly fine as well. We have an open table. We also have the X card, which for those of you who don't know, if something gets problematic or it's really not being a lot of fun or it's hitting you wrong, it is perfectly fine to do something like this, to put something in our chat, or to say, hey, Tyler, I think I want to X that. Now, I'm going to say, and I don't know if it's noticeable, but I broke my glasses, so I only have one lens at the moment. And so I may be taking off these glasses some as I go along. I don't see so far away without them, but I don't see so well close with them. So we may see me flipping glasses a little bit along the way. Yes, Ryan, yours, you managed to keep your lenses.
I just realized that I'd stuck my finger right in the middle of them, though, so.
But we're going to, I would say, with the X card, I may not see things in the chat, but please feel free to put something up, to say something. It is for our safety. It's here for us to make sure we're having the best time. Please feel free to use it. I may ask for a clarification, but we'll back it up. We're all working together because this is a GMS game. We're all able to work together, and we'll figure something to make it more comfortable. So we know these are on the table. Now, with kind of silliness aside, I'm going to read, if we don't mind, the intro to Fireships at Midnight. This will pass along. It's going to say in here in the rules that we pass along who's going to read. When we do, please introduce yourself and read through your set. I'm Tyler. My pronouns he, him. And this is Fireships at Midnight. In late May of 1588, King Philip II of Spain dispatched the Grande y Felicissima Armada, known as the Spanish Armada, to invade England under the command of the Duke of Medina Sidonia. Manned by Spain's best sailors, prepared to transport a massive army, and carrying priests of the Inquisition, the Armada intended to bring England back into the Catholic fold. At midnight on the 28th of July, as they close anchored for the night, an English fireship attack ended all their hopes. What happened after became a legendary disaster. In Fireships at Midnight, players take on the roles of the Duke of Medina Sidonia, Cardinal Ribera, and Captain Salazar, referred to collectively as the Pillars. They must endure the horrors of the journey, but more importantly, they must save their own reputations when they return to Spain. The game is played over 3 turns, referred to as conflicts, each with 4 phases. Each character will have a pool of 6-sided dice, which they will use to bid and roll for authority in each conflict. A result of 1 to 3 on a die is a failure, while a 4 to 6 is a success. Successes are totaled with failures subtracted and compared to the conflict resolution chart. Once all conflicts are resolved, we discover the reception our characters receive back home in Spain. While all the action in Fireships at Midnight takes place on the ocean, it is how they are received in Spain that is most important to the Pillars. Using various machinations to overcome or endure the conflicts and eliminate their rivals will leave one pillar with narrative control once the Armada returns to Spain. In the end, any price is worth paying to save their reputations. Players should take turns reading aloud each section up to the conflicts. Conflicts will be read during play. Once all conflicts have been faced, move on to the return to Spain. Lou, would you be so kind as to read the characters section?
Yeah, I'll give that a go. The characters. The Duke of Medina Sidonia. The Duke was appointed Admiral of the Spanish Armada despite having no real qualifications. He was, however, a skilled courtier, brave fighter, and loyal servant of the crown. His efforts probably made a doomed invasion less of a disaster than it otherwise would have been. The Duke may re-roll any one die on it. What is CRC? That's a
conflict resolution chart.
Cool. Where he is the active pillar. Shall I keep going?
Yes, please do.
Cool. Cardinal Ribera. The Cardinal is a composite of the many priests and inquisitors who sailed with the Armada. They were fanatical in their devotion to the Church and their king. The Inquisition's arrogance and zealous certainty of its righteousness elevated the invasion to a holy war. Once the Spanish army landed, the English heretics would be tried and burned at the stake. Captain Salazar. I'm just leaving the rule bits aside because I don't really know what they mean yet. The captain is a composite of several very capable naval commanders who were hamstrung by politics and forced to accept an inexperienced noble as admiral. Spanish captains were the most experienced sailors on the high seas, often commanding the same ship for many years.
Thank you. And for our, as you're saying, we have some rules that are independent for each character. We have the Cardinal can change 2 dice to any result on the combat resolution chart once per game. And the Captain can take all failed dice rolled in a conflict resolution into his pool once per game. We'll come to what that means as we go along. Ryan, would you introduce and do our 4 phases of conflict?
I'm Ryan, he, him, and the 4 phases of conflict. 1. Introduction. The captain reads aloud the conflict and the 4 plans to deal with it. Then they describe the state of the fleet at that moment. Be as inventive and descriptive as you like. 2. Negotiations. The Duke describes the location where the pillars are meeting and directs the conversation as the pillars discuss how to deal with the conflict. The pillars may beg, threaten, bargain, or simply cooperate. However, no agreement is binding when your reputation is on the line. 3. Bidding. The players secretly bid dice from their pool to become the active pillar with authority to deal with the conflict. The bids will also be the dice they roll with on the CRC. The highest bid wins and picks a plan, with ties broken in favor of the Duke and then the Cardinal. Players who lose the bid may give one of their bid dice to the winner of the CRC roll, but all others are lost. Each character must bid a minimum of 1. 4. Resolution. The Cardinal describes the prayer/blessing they bestow on the fleet, and the active pillar rolls the dice from the winning bid, plus any given by the losers, and compares it to the CRC. Failures are subtracted from successes. Once the indicated pillar describes the aftermath of the roll, I can talk, the Armada moves on to the next conflict. Any uses of a pillar's special move are done in the same order as breaking ties: Duke, then Cardinal, then Captain. Players should note if the conflict was heroically overcome or merely endured. Successfully overcoming conflicts is all that matters when we return to Spain.
Thank you very much. And that order will be what we do going through pretty much the entirety of the game till the end. I'll read real quick the return to Spain. Once the fleet returns to Spain, the pillars are to tally whether each conflict was overcome or endured, and how many pillars still have dice in their pools. In many ways, this is the true thrust of the game. For some pillars, overcoming conflicts is not the best way to secure their reputation. The final scene is described based on the following. If no conflicts are overcome and no pillars have dice left, the Cardinal describes how the Church views him as a martyr. and the other pillars as sinners and fools. If no conflicts are overcome and one or more pillars survive, the captain describes how the public blames the crown and the church for Spanish humiliations. One conflict overcome and one or fewer pillars, remaining pillar, or the duke, if there is none, describes how he lays blame for the failure at the feet of the other pillars. One conflict overcome and two or more pillars, the cardinal describes how the crown protects itself from blame and punishes the returning pillars. Two conflicts overcome and one or fewer pillars, remaining pillar or the captain, if none, describes how the pillars are made heroes of the moment, but also how history remembers them poorly. Two conflicts overcome and two or more pillars, the captain describes how the crown turns this into a victory and how the crown shows the pillars as heroes. Three conflicts overcome and one or fewer pillars, remaining pillar, or the cardinal, if none, describes how the public views him as the hero of the day and the other pillars as dead weight. Three conflicts overcome and two or more pillars, the duke describes how all the pillars are greeted as heroes and how the crown rewards him. Once the return to Spain description is finished, each player should read aloud their characters afterward. Now, I bring this up because it's important to note that getting back to Spain, you're kind of wanting to angle for your character to have the cool bit. So running somebody out of the game is just fine if you want to. And then we have the conflict resolution chart. Lou, would you be so kind as to read that for us?
Yeah. Okay. 4 or more successes. The active pillar either adds 1 die to their pool or takes 1 die from each other pillar into their pool. They then describe how the fleet overcomes the conflict. I'm just deciding how to read this because it's ambiguous. I'll just 3 successes. Active pillar adds 1 die to their pool and describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict. 2 successes. Active pillar either loses 1 die from their pool and describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict, or adds 1 die to their pool and asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict. 1 success. The active pillar either asks another pillar to describe how the fleet endures the conflict, or all the pillars lose 1 die from their pool, and the active pillar describes how the fleet overcomes the conflict. No successes. All pillars lose 1 die, and the active pillar describes the horrors required to endure the conflict. Ooh, I like horrors. I hope there's lots of horrors. If a pillar has 0 dice at the end of any phase, they are disgraced, killed, or imprisoned. They will describe why and how they are removed as a pillar, and will utter their curse or blessing to the remaining pillars. Once removed as a pillar, a player may demand a reroll a reroll of 1 die in each CRC roll to reflect their curse/blessing. However, they are no longer a part of the bidding phase. They may participate in other phases as a proxy successor or in disgrace.
Thank you. And what that means is we're going to roll our die. And just to do a recap real quick, we'll go through our order of play. So we're going to first have the captain tell us what our conflict is and describe what the fleet's condition is. Then we'll go into negotiation where the Duke's going to set up the scene, and we're going to talk back and forth and kind of come up maybe with a plan of what we want to do, maybe lie to each other, but we're going to figure out what we want to bid. When we bid, however many we each bid goes up as whoever has the most will win. Tie's broken. And then that pool of the winner, plus if someone wants to give a die, they can. You have to bid at least one die. They will then roll that amount of die, consult the chart with failures subtracted from successes, and we'll have the results. All right? Any questions on the rules at this point? Okay. Then who would we like to play? Ryan, anybody in particular you'd be interested in playing?
I've played the captain before, and that was a lot of fun, but maybe I should try one of the other ones. I don't know, like maybe the cardinal or the duke. I don't know, what do people want to play who haven't done it yet?
I want to be the cardinal the least.
Okay. I'm happy to play any of them, but I'll play the cardinal. Then, if you'd like to play the duke, or would you rather play the cardinal, right?
What do you think, Lou? Would you rather be a captain or a duke?
I'll be the captain if you have already played as the captain. That sounds fun.
I'll be the duke. I'm
We did
just
it.
here to look cool.
Then I shall play the cardinal. All right, then. So, what I think we're going to do is, if y'all want to kind of look over your character again, that's there for a little bit of role play inspiration. It also tells you your special ability there. And we're going to take 5 minutes, and I'm going to set up our little roll for our party room, and then we'll come back and begin. So let's go ahead and do 8 minutes. We'll come back at 35 after the hour. Y'all all ready for the holidays? Y'all in good shape for those? I finally had to do the last bits of my shopping today. All right. Well, do we feel like we're in good shape? Are there any questions? Cool. Well, Captain, if we'll turn to the conflicts, you will read off the first conflict, Fire Ships at Midnight, and the options that we have to work with. And if you'd like, either before or after that, you can describe the state of the fleet, how the men are when we're in the midst of all this. I think probably the conflict first, then the state.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Cool. Okay. Let us begin. Fire ships at midnight. The perfidious English have lit their own ships on fire, filled them with pitch, and are sailing them toward the bulk of the fleet at anchor. In a panic, the majority of captains have cut anchor and are scattering. The current and the wind are pushing the fleet north out of the English Channel. How will the pillars attempt to keep the fleet from falling into complete disarray? And these are the plans. Signal the fleet to tack into the wind and reform to the north. +2 success for the captain on the CRC if active. Trust in the Almighty to bring his flock to safety. That sounds like a rubbish. +2 successes for the cardinal on the CRC if active. Send small ships out to cover the retreat and protect the fleet. -1 success. Signal for all capital ships to converge on the flagship and leave the others to their fate. Sounds like something the Duke would do for sure. +1 success for the Duke on the CRC if active. Okay, and I am meant to describe the current health of the...
Yeah, the fleet with these fire ships bearing down on us. What's it like?
Okay, so the health of the fleet before any fire ships hit us. Okay, well, from my vast historical knowledge about the Spanish Armada that I refreshed this morning, as in vast, as in I've read one Choose Your Own Adventure book about it. I remember something about how the fleet was like arranged in this like big like crescent shape, and they were purposefully like packed all in like super tight. So I think we kind of see the fleet arranged like that, and I mean at the moment it's like a massive and fleet that's in really great condition, but perhaps won't be for so long.
Excellent. All right, so we go to negotiations. The Duke. Describe the location we're meeting and direct the conversation.
We meet, of course, in my quarters on the grandest ship in the whole Armada, in the grandest quarters, and they're decked out beautifully. There's great fabrics in here. All the woods are perfect. Yeah, I've got actual silver on my dining table and everything, where I'm sure that there's food and wine laid out for all of you, because I can be a gracious host, even if your opinions are not so good as mine. And I am wearing, like, not just a naval uniform, but with all of the ceremonial flourishes that you don't really need at sea. Like, if I was accepting a medal, it would make sense, but I look pretty fancy. And put my hands on the table with all the authority of my title. How dare you think wanker at me, even if it's true, and say, well, what are your recommendations?
Your lordship, your grace, I am sure that all that we need is the Lord's help. They, demonic English that they are, they sling fire against us. The Lord The Lord will protect us all. Surely, Captain, you would agree.
Well, I think the Lord rewards those who make their own wise decisions. I think we'll find we can't just rely entirely on the Lord to protect us, right?
The Cardinal, who I imagine tall, very skinny, probably bald, that sort of like slicked bald of a guy who like fanatically shaves every morning. He's got that kind of long hooked nose as he looks over at the Duke with this sort of this sort of shock. Oh, the Lord! We don't depend entirely on the Lord. What is there?
With a tired flourish, I remove my hat, which is unnecessarily grand. There are feathers in this thing. It's amazing. And kind of set it on the table. Because I am speaking to you, not as your superior. Though I am. You should remember that. But as merely another man looking for information. I'm like, but... I feel like, though, of course the Lord is on our side. He could not be on any other side than us, his most loyal and truest servants, that we should perhaps help him along by not merely waiting for salvation, but taking it into our own hands. For how can he assist us if we merely wait here to catch fire? I think that we should signal the other capital ships to converge here and leave, because we're already a little further away. The rest can follow, and some may be left behind, but I doubt that we're going to save the entire fleet.
It sounds a little to me like you're suggesting we save you and the other lords and leave the better part of our fleet behind to burn. Is that what you're suggesting? Just so I know what orders to pass on.
I would never suggest that we let the others burn. Merely that in their attempts to flee, their ships are not as fleet as some of the rest of the Armada, and may not be able to keep up.
As much as I bow to your knowledge of all things naval, may I suggest that perhaps we try to stay in formation and move to the north together and don't break the fleet?
I have to say, Your Grace, that I tend to agree that if it is right for us to flee, then we should flee together. The flock must move as one. That way the shepherd can keep his eye upon us all.
I'm glad to see we've come to an agreement.
Your Grace, do you agree?
You can see like an eye twitch as the Duke realizes that his plan to make the two of you fight and then him look the best did not go off without a hitch this time. And I think we're probably into the bidding phase.
I think so too. Sounds like we have the Cardinal agreeing to go with the captain's idea. We have the Duke not saying particularly what they're doing. And keep in mind, just to give a refresh, whoever bids the most will get to be in charge of what plan is picked and describing what happens once we roll. And of course, everyone
saying treachery, but he doesn't need to because it's obvious. Eyes on both of you.
All right. So we head into the bidding phase. So we all will secretly choose one. I think the easiest... I shared with us our roll for a party. I think the easiest thing is for us to all put something in chat for how many we're bidding. 1, 2, 3, we show them. And then we will subtract out, move around dice inside of our roll for our party to reflect what we're doing. That seemed good? Everybody understand on that one? Cool. All right. So the bidding process. Choose how many you wish to bid. You must bid at least one, and ties are broken. Duke, Cardinal to Captain. Are we ready? Put up a thumb. Cool. 1, 2, 3. Oh, for those of you at home, the Cardinal, true to his holy word, put only one in with hopes the captain's plan would follow through. The Duke, however, put in 3 to show the strength of his grace, while our captain also put in 3, meaning it's tied, broken to the Duke. So we have our Cardinal needs to make their prayer for resolution. The Cardinal stands at the prow of the flagship, looking back towards the flaming ships coming towards the fleet. And his voice rises up, caught in the breeze. Oh, Lord, these servants of Satan send their fires against us. But we know you shall send your wind, your water, and our salvation. Oh, Lord, help us. Your Grace, you have won the bid. So, we have to decide, first off, is the Cardinal going to give his die to you? And the Cardinal will. Captain, you will be losing 2 die. Are you also going to lose that 3rd one? Or are you going to hand it over to the Duke to initiate his plan?
Why would I do that?
I think your disapproval is registered. And so, Your Grace, it looks as though you have 4 dice to roll. So in our roll for your party, pull up 3 of your dice, 1 of mine. Oops. What if mine comes back down? There we go. And the captain will pull up 1 or 3 of, click 3 of your dice, and you should, actually the easiest thing, because it's potential for you to get dice back, is probably for you to move them up above your name and set them off to the side. All right. And when you've done that, Your Grace.
But was it not divine intervention that caused 2 of your dice to fall into line with mine? Who are you to speak against the will of the Lord and making my game look better? Okay, yeah, only 4 dice.
So what plan were you choosing? Choosing your own?
Oh, I'm totally choosing my own plan.
Yeah.
Heck with you.
And, oh, look at you.
That is 4 successes, I think.
That is. All right. So, on our...
I kind of want to see how you spin this now, like, after you were so clearly, like... well, I thought you were clearly out-positioned. You just ignore all the good advice and give your orders anyway.
Yeah, so the Duke totally realizes that he outranks both of you. He asked for your opinions. He did not accept commands. You are merely advising him as the admiral of this fleet. And will go around both your backs to pass on the orders to whoever is next, like probably the captain of another ship or something, to disseminate that amongst the fleet, that all should follow the flagship away, because it is the fleetest. Should any fall behind, we pray for their souls, but we cannot help them.
Fantastic. And did you add 1 die to your pool, or take 1 die from each of us into your pool?
I am a good and magnanimous captain. I would never punish you for being wrong, so I'll just take 1 die back.
Very kind of you, Your Grace.
Wait, not captain. Admiral. I got it right.
So can you remind me, Tyler, you said I'd lost 2 dice out of my...
I think you ended up losing 3 total, because you bid 3.
Okay, cool. Yeah, rightio, sweet.
You had the option to hand 1 off, but so set your 3 off to the side. Keep in mind that your special power in this case was not applicable because Ryan rolled all successes.
I was waiting to steal all of the failures, but there weren't any. Like totally outmaneuvered.
That was a hell of a great roll.
I guess that suggests, like, if we play that success into the game, maybe that's, like, shows how you totally went around me. Like, I had no way to, like, even get anything out of the situation.
And so it comes to you, Lou, as we enter second conflict, to describe our fleet and tell us our conflict ahead, so it can reflect however you want it to reflect.
Well, guess what fucking happened?
Me?
Hello. Hi. Yeah, guess what happened? The vast majority of the fleet is on fire now. Like the body of the fleet is totally fucked up and scattered. Let's say like half of it's burned and on fire, and half of the body of the fleet is like totally scattered. And all the flagships are fine though. Every one of them totally fine.
Fantastic.
And I think we're now all like it's spread out in a massive line.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think even the flagships are like, they haven't managed to stay together. They're all like, it's just, yeah, super spread out and exposed.
Cool. So read us Conflict 2, Rough Water and Storms.
Scroll. Okay. Rough water and storms. Having been pushed into the North Sea, the Armada must deal with the horrors of weather in September during the Little Ice Age. As storms rage, much of the fleet is forced onto the rocky shores of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The cold numbs sailors and makes the ships hard to handle, while tornadoes and rogue waves capsize the unwary. How will the Pillars navigate around the British Isles, hold the fleet together, and eventually turn south towards home? These are the plans. Consolidate all personnel into the most seaworthy ships and scuttle the rest, +2 successes for the captain if active. Order all ships to bend every sail. Those who fall, leave those who fall behind. +1 success for the Duke if active. Stay in loose formation and continue to weather the elements as best you can. -1 success. Keep close formation and share resources as best you can. +2 successes for the Cardinal if active. Hmm.
And so, I believe we had a description of how the fleet is strung out. It goes to you, Your Grace.
Where, once again, in the Duke's rooms, where you can see not, the whole fleet stretched out through his, string of windows, because, I mean, who's going to spare glass when it comes to the Duke? But, scattered ships kind of off in the distance. On the upside, there's no fire incoming at the moment, but it doesn't look quite as majestic as it did before. And he looks a little more harried. He's not in full dress uniform, but he's still got a pretty good spread, and he's still looking pretty good. Already has the fancy hat off. It's not gonna with that, but appearances are everything. We may be fleeing, but we are not animals.
So, is he also like having some sort of small, like, personal feast?
Oh yeah. I mean,
I was just
we're
thinking
on the run, but it's dinner time.
I was just reading earlier on that they had so little food that the crew were forced to eat ropes. So I thought it would be funny if the Duke was like having an awesome feast.
Finely seasoned grains for the rest of the crew. Braided into easy travel rations. But for me, of course, having a more delicate constitution as one of the nobility, we have fresh meats and all that. And you, of course, are welcome to partake as well, being my important advisors.
Your Grace, thank you for this bounty. I think you've seen the Cardinal more partaking of the cellar than the galley. A great deal more wine than eating, but he will pick a bit at some of the chicken, I suppose. Or it is becoming quite apparent that we must take care of our charges. Some of our ships have already had so many lost overboard that their stores are, well, more than sufficient. Some starve. Surely we should bring all of our scattered flock together so they may partake of the bounty of the group.
I agree. I think it's a solid plan. However, we've got many ships that are slowing us down, that are broken. I think we should do as you say, but we should bring all of the men onto the ships that are the most seaworthy and scuttle the others, so we can move at the speed of the fastest ship rather than the speed of the slowest ships.
But surely we can order all ships to just bend all sails toward south and toward home. And surely only the ships with enough damage that they could no longer be seaworthy would be left behind. We'll arrive spaced out, of course, but...
Your Grace, we would be leaving so many of these poor souls behind.
Yes, once again, you seem to be suggesting that we leave part of our fleet behind. Did you not see what happened before? Half of the fleet is burned.
You may have a point, I said, pondering the starvation and deprivation on the other ships with a heavy heart. As I cut open some of these sausages, they're excellent, really, aren't they?
Quite juicy, Your Grace. Please, Your Grace. I see your wisdom, Captain. Once we've brought them all in and begun to share amongst each other, then we can We can bring the men closer in. Ships that need to be left can be left. The important thing is that our flock is fed.
And I'm sure as we sail past island, our Catholic brothers and sisters will help us to restock our ships.
We can hope. Does it sound like we're going to bid? Your Grace, anything further to say?
He's deep in thought, maybe pondering just how good it tastes to have a proper meal out on the terrible sea, but maybe also pondering the plight of the fleet.
You're totally going to pretend to agree with us again and then just do whatever the fuck you want, aren't you?
Why would I do that? I don't have to pretend to agree with you about anything. I can always do whatever the fuck I want.
I do want to ask, though, Ryan, I think you should have a third die set to the side because you tied at 3.
Oh, but I took one back into my hand because I had so many successes.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're ever so clever. I am so sorry. I should never have doubted you.
I see you trying to diminish my position, and I magnanimously, perhaps even nobly, rise above it.
The Lord
nobly
sees all.
Explain the rules of your own game to you.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've read this, but let me explain to you how Fire Ships at Midnight works. It's kind of complicated.
Touche, sir. All right, we head into bidding. So, and I'll scoot mine off to the side as well, there at the top. So, bidding. We'll put it in 1, 2, 3. Oh, Lou.
I only had 3 dice left, so it seemed dumb to spend all of them.
Well, it breaks in favor. We have the bid for those at home. I bid 2 for the Cardinal. Our Lord Duke bid 1. And the Captain bid 2.
This is actually reflecting really well that while I may know shit, I've got the least amount of power in the...
And so it does break to the Cardinal to choose. And so I'm going to pop over to the roll for your party. I'm going to put in my 2 dice. Your Grace, are you giving me your die?
Of course I am. But I'm not going to openly oppose the church. That would be absurd. I am behind your plan.
Thank you very much. Captain, you bid 2. Are you giving one of those to the Cardinal? Yes. All right.
Mainly because I'm hoping you'll roll failures that I can steal.
That's what I figured. And you should move one of your other die off to your out of play area as you bid 2 that time. All right. So I have 4 to roll. Oops, I'm sorry. There. I think I clicked while Lou was moving things. So I have 4 to roll. And I'm going to declare my plan and give my blessing. I'm going to, as a sign, I come before the fleet as we've signaled all ships converge. And as they move in benediction, oh, you starving men. Oh, ye who have fallen to moral turpitude, who have fallen to doubt. Come, we shall share in the bounty of the Almighty. Come closer to the ships that will sail, and we will cast back those that are unable. And I'm going to choose the captain's plan.
I totally didn't think you were going to do that. The captain says that we should leave ships behind, but no.
And I re-roll. I have 2 successes and 2 failures, making it 0. I have no bonus because I chose the captain's role. Some people have some powers. Well, let's see. Your Grace, can you re-roll only when you're
Only
active?
if I'm the active pillar, and
Oh
I'm not.
my. So it looks like we have gotten a 0 result.
I'm also going to steal those failed dice back for myself because I've only got 1 left now.
Good show. So 2 go back into your pool. As I'm going to, with a 0, no successes. Everybody's going to lose 1 die. So I'm going to pull mine. Oops. Up to there. Oops. I've lost 3. Oh, I lost 1 extra. There we go. Okay. So I think we're all set there. For folks at home, the Duke has 4 dice left. The Cardinal has 2 dice left. And the Captain has 2 dice left. And I will describe the horrors that befall us. Because in the process of trying to move men between these ships in these high seas, as the ice and the sleet and the snow, men fell overboard. Some of them went back, clinging to the old ships, trying to climb back up them. The decision had already been made. They were scuttled, and the men clinging to them sank below, screaming curses towards the fleet that sailed away.
So it seems like it ended up being similar to the Duke's plan all along.
So we are currently at 1 event, 1 conflict endured and 1 overcome. And so we're looking at our last conflict. Feel like getting through this last conflict for a break? Want to do that, or want to take a break before it?
I mean, I'm good to go, but if you want to stew in your failures a bit longer, I would never deny you that.
I'd like to run and get another beer.
All right,
That
then.
sounds fair.
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute, and we'll come back for this final conflict. And it might be worth looking at, what that return to Spain says for what you might want to get out of it. So off we go, gang.
Yes, and
I'm
as
going to
the Duke
be
would say,
burned at the
yes,
stake.
we must break for refreshments and be adequately strengthened for our final decisions.
Yes.
See y'all in 5.
This is fun, Tyler. Hello.
I completely hung myself with my earphones.
Yeah, I noticed you get tangled up there. This is really fun.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I was reading this morning that the big parts of the fleet tried to stop in Ireland because they thought that the Irish would help them because they were Catholics as well, but instead they just stripped them all naked and killed heaps of them.
Yeah, they just took all their stuff.
Yeah. Apparently there was some like running around there for like a couple of years afterwards, though, like Spaniards on the run in Ireland.
Mm-hmm. It's a terrible, sad story, but it's fascinating. First off, when I started looking into it, when I first starting to come up with the idea and decide what I wanted to do, what amazed me was the amount of time it took. I mean, this thing starts in, May, and they don't get home until well after, it's like January, we're getting into like March and April before they get back home. So there's over, almost a year it takes them to do this trip.
I was reading that King Philip was also constantly sending them letters, like telling them what to do, even though he knew like nothing about like naval like stuff at all.
Mm-hmm. It's a really neat period of history.
The thing I love about it is the whole like parallel. Oh, thank you, Beer Angel. I love the do you know that trouser legs of time idea from Terry Pratchett? Like the it's the moment in which like parallel universes are created, like just like all of the chances that came together, like the Spanish totally look like they could smash them. Like they could totally have been like Spain took over England in like the late 1500s, and we'd all be having siestas right now, and it would be awesome.
It's one of those. It's one of the things I'm fascinated by, the moments in history that seem insane. That if some tiny twist happens, everything changes. The Armada's won. Battle of Hastings is won. I think that Charlemagne's division of his empire is won. They fascinate me.
Yeah, me too.
I may try to write some, if I can find more that fit into the PvP version of it with people working together towards a goal, but kind of against each other. I'm trying to find more of those to make a little series, maybe end up with 5 or 6 of these little games. But for us right now, we're in final conflict. And we're looking at the old Return to Spain chart. We're saying we've got 1 fail and 1 success. So, it's a little more complicated. Down on dice, except for the Duke, who's always flush. And so, Captain, we have the final conflict to read. And you can either describe the fleet before or after.
Yeah, I think I'll describe it after this time. Plague and sickness on the journey south. Just as a really interesting other bit of history I was reading this morning, speaking of plague and sickness, I apparently like only 1 English ship got sunk in this whole thing, but like 5,000 or 6,000 English sailors died at sea during this time from like illness on board their ships, like not even from fighting or anything. They just got like dysentery and stuff. So this is like imagine how bad it was on ships that were low on food and not like doing well. Anyway, plague and sickness on the journey south. After so long at sea, sickness begins to take its toll on the men of the fleet. As sailors and officers alike begin to die, unrest simmers among the survivors. This is really nice writing, by the way, Tyler. Crews turn on their officers. Individual captains ignore the admiral's orders. That makes sense. And some ships seek any safe harbour. How will the pillars return the armada to King Philip and save their own reputations? These are our plans. Open fire on any who try to abandon the fleet, +1 success if the Duke is active. Rally the priests to give sermons on the divine rights of His Most Catholic Majesty, +2 successes if the Cardinal is active. Issue orders that any insubordinate crewmen are to be hung immediately, -1 success. Signal the fleet for all ships to make best sail towards Spain and disperse the armada, +2 successes if the captain is active. I like how much these end up being the opposite of what you were arguing for originally. It makes everyone look kind of a little bit stupid and they're like, I know I said earlier not to disperse the fleet, but now we totally got to disperse the fleet.
It's all about timing.
Yeah. So I think how the fleet at this part, we're coming down kind of in the Irish sea. And I think, we're a heap smaller fleet now. And I think you kind of get those shots of the crew on board just looking ragged and heaps of, they're probably throwing bodies overboard of people who are starving and dying. And probably we even get some images of some ships breaking away from the fleet. And maybe even we get a bit of a, as the camera's scrolling through, we see a full kind of mutiny, in action on one of the ships. So, yeah, things are, maybe we see a couple of ships just everyone on board has died. They're just floating freely in the water sort of thing.
Oh, that's a cool image. And that's that kind of breaking to Ireland that you mentioned before. Your Grace, somewhat different fleet this time.
Yeah, so we're once again in the majestic stateroom of His Grace, except at those back windows you can see a mutiny going down on one of the ships in the background. Clearly it's closer than we thought. And his hair's kind of sticking up in odd directions from where he's been running hands through it, going, oh no, what do we do? And his uniform is almost rushed. I mean, he's not putting all that effort into his appearance. We are clearly in dire straits. There's not a wonderful feast laid out. There's a token amount of food because I'm not going to share everything with you. If we're going to starve, I'm going to eat. You can starve. But there's still plenty of wine. I mean, the Cardinal hasn't drunk it all yet. We've got some.
And I think you see the Cardinal there, very drawn and thin, but definitely sipping strongly at that wine. Your Grace, you called us here.
Yes, the fleet is in shambles. And I have word from King Philip himself saying that we must remind them of the importance of duty and service to the crown by opening fire on any ship that attempts to leave.
Are you mad? Look how much we've lost already. We're going to start. So first you suggest we leave part of our fleet behind, and then you suggest we leave even more behind, and now you're suggesting we kill our own countrymen.
Mind your place, as I'm waving a letter. That these orders come from King Philip himself. Are you calling our glorious King Philip mad?
Let me look at those. So looks at them oh fuck. They are. from the king. The king is also, I don't say this, but in his eyes, you see, the king is also, oh, actually, you know what? I'm pissed off. What does the king know of our situation right now, of naval matters?
You speak against his most Catholic Majesty.
The
Captain.
king's so far away from us right now, he cannot know what is happening here. If he was here right now, of course I would defer to him, but he's not.
No, now we have his grace, and I would defer to him. Your idea seems to have great merit.
As a loyal servant of the crown, I can do nothing but defer to the orders I am given by His Most Catholic Majesty. But I am curious, if his advice is so mad and so beneath you, what would you propose we do, Captain?
Well, it's obvious. We do the exact opposite of what I've been saying to do all along. Our fleet has been smashed. It's dangerous for us to stay in one fleet now. We need to all make our own way to Spain. We need to split up and sail. Trust to God you may say, Cardinal, that we all arrive back.
Oh, your grace, think of the dishonor should you arrive piecemeal with your fleet. No, we should definitely bring down the wrath upon those who would turn against His Most Catholic Majesty. Boy, fill up the glass. All the way to the top.
The captain grabs some food off the table and shoves it into his mouth, because this is probably the only time he gets a good meal at the moment.
That's totally why it's a lesser spread than usual, because I know you're just eating here.
And both of you are fools. You don't know anything about getting us home safely. I think I am going to storm out. Totally going to go to fucking Ireland. Fuck you guys.
As you start to storm out, I order you out, because no one leaves. I fire you.
Yeah. No, you don't quit. You're fired.
Yeah. Get out. I don't need your impudence.
And I think you see the cardinal just shake his head in sadness. Oh. And that sounds, you think that's probably end of negotiations. So it's a bidding phase. Keep in mind, however many pillars, who has still something left in their pool, is a pillar still surviving to the end. Bid accordingly. Everyone must bid 1. All right. 1, 2, 3. Oh, my goodness, Ryan, you bid high.
I was hoping someone else would commit to their ideas and that we would all die heroically. But no. No loyalty here. I have done nothing but look out for my own interests, and I don't know why you don't respect that.
I respect it sufficiently that in my blessing... well, actually, what plan are you taking?
Well, I might have taken the captain's plan, but clearly he's just fucked off to Ireland, so screw him. I'm gonna do my own plan. Rally, hey, open fire on other people, save my own ship. Fuck all y'all.
All right, so you will have
probably opening fire on me as I try to sail off in my ship, right?
Focus on that ship in particular. I'm pretty sure that ship is the most traitorous.
And so as that is the plan you've chosen, I give blessing down the row of our cannons, giving communion to each cannon as I pass, so that it will be forgiven for the death it is to ensue upon those who would flee his most Catholic Majesty's fleet. So I give you my die. Lou, would you like to give your one die?
No, thank you.
I'm going to move it up then to your out of space. So Ryan, roll it up.
That's 4 successes. Because I am awesome, and y'all should have done what I said in the first place.
4 successes. Hold on a moment. I'm going to change 2 of those
How dare you!
successes to failures,
Excuse you. That's terrible.
taking us to 2 successes.
I
Active
could've
pillar
murdered you.
either loses 1 die from their pool, but you don't have any.
But I have a move I can use that goes before yours. Because
It
I'm
does.
awesome. So I'm gonna re-roll my failure to see if I get another success.
All right.
Crap. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Or you can add 1 die to your pool, which is what you're going to do. So you're going to get 1 back into your pool. But you get to describe how we endure this, how this works.
It was gonna be awesome. I was gonna go out in a blaze of glory. Except I was gonna make it through. And come back into Spain, going that I alone was loyal, and I did what you asked. And these other fuckers just died because they were terrible. But no, you had to ruin everything. Why do you hate success? Cardinal Rivera. Okay, so I've got 2 successes. Yeah. I am gonna ask the captain to narrate how we endure the conflict, because, I mean, we probably failed because you didn't give me your support. So this is all on you. Describe how badly it goes.
As in how badly your plan goes and how it just pretty much turned into my plan and then worked.
You could spin it that way, but it's still my idea, so...
So I think what happens is, I think some ships are trying to peel off from the fleet and make their own way because it's become like obvious that, I mean, even in when the weather's crazier, it's more dangerous to sail closely together in storms. Ships are meant to spread out so they don't like crash into each other and stuff. So I think there's these kind of conflicting orders with what would actually be sensible to do when on a ship in the ocean. And some ships try to peel off to get further away, and I think a shot, like just freaking gunned down. And then I think maybe at nighttime, when the visibility is less, most of the fleet just kind of dissipates. Like the sun comes up the next day and there's like only a few other ships around, the flagships maybe are still, the remaining flagships are still together, but the rest of the fleet with like proper sailors on it have just like
see ya.
Yeah.
Oh, magnificent. All right. Well, that was the end of our last conflict. So why don't we take a break, and we're going to come back to our return to Spain. We're coming into Return to Spain with 1 conflict overcome and 2 or more pillars. Which means the Cardinal describes how the Crown protects itself from blame and punishes the returning pillars. And I feel a little cheaty since I ended up winning my game. But we'll come back to that, and then we'll read our afterwards. And then I'd love to hear some feedback on the game. So, sound good? And I think probably because, you know, we'll have that time, I'd love to hear an epilogue out of each of the other two characters as well. So, let's take 4 minutes, come back and do that. For anybody watching, I've had fun playing this. It's actually, you know, it sounds a little braggy, but I'm actually kind of pleased with how this turned out. This was fun. Thanks for watching.
So you should be.
Well, thank you, Lou.
I've been racking my brain trying to think of other like historical or semi-historical situations to
I have
like bring into it.
The ones I'm thinking of right now are Caesar crossing the Rubicon, coming back to Rome and facing the Senate.
Rad.
That's one I'm thinking of. I've also been thinking about one in Napoleonic era, and I have a very interesting, there's a neat period in the Shogunate of Japan. That's
rad.
a real nice twist.
I've been watching the 5th season of Vikings at the moment, so I had that on my mind. And I know that's kind of like semi-historical. They kind of bring in they bring cool stories in from all over the Viking area.
Pulling from the sagas, because Vikings is cool. It's a good show.
But like there's that whole Sons of Ragnar thing in England that could be interesting. There's like Ivar that's trying to become the leader of the army and get people to see him as like a strong person. And then there's one that's kind of going to actually wants peace. and farming in England, and then there's another one that just doesn't want either of the two of them to like boss him around, essentially.
If I was completely honest with myself, I could do all 6 of them in England, but that's because I'm an Anglophile and really know English history. So I was like, that's lovely, but I should have a more international scope than just doing English games. But I may still end up doing that. Regardless, we are now hitting the return to Spain. So, with our conflict set, the Cardinal describes how the crown protects itself from blame and punishes the returning pillars. And so I believe we see the ships, the flagship returning in, His Grace's pendant flying on it. I think the captain has already gotten there before the flagship set.
Yeah, I totally resupplied in Ireland successfully. Because I wasn't an asshole about it.
So we see as the ships of the grand flagships and the capital ships of the fleet coming in, they recognize some of the other ships there in the port of Cadiz as fleet members that made it quicker. His Majesty is not delighted by how this endeavor went. They succeeded in not doing any of the things that were supposed to be done. And so he tells the people of how the great armada of Spain circled completely around the British island, showing them that they could encompass them fully. There is no place around Britain that our fleet cannot sail. He welcomes his Duke back, though he looks sadly. My dear Duke, you could have done so much more. But he cannot bring himself to publicly shame him, because that would make it look like a failure. The Cardinal, having returned back merely skin and bones, returns once more to the Vatican. And in his last days, as he withers away, taking only nourishment from wine, he confesses, "I never thought we could do it." And dies. Captain, what is an epilogue we see from you, Captain Salazar?
I'll just go with the first thing I think of, which is I think it's just 10 years later, in some like portside cantina or whatever you call a Spanish bar. Is that the name for a Spanish barcito or something?
I think a cantina is correct.
Yeah. Like, like that kind of like out on the like cobbles kind of view. Actually, it's for some reason he's in Lisbon, just because I really like those black and white like kind of mosaic-y tiles that they have over all the streets. Yeah, and that makes more sense. And I think he's just he's drunk in the daytime, and he's just totally bad-mouthing the King of Spain and the whatever the stupid Duke's name is. And probably large parts of the Catholic Church as well. And then I think we see kind of off behind him somewhere, we see some inquisitors and whatever the armed part of the Inquisition is, like slowly approaching him, but then we don't see what happens.
Oh, I love it. Oh.
Like he thought he got away from them, but maybe he didn't.
Oh, magnificent. Your Grace, what we see is an epilogue for you.
So, King Philip doesn't want to chastise me in public because that would make it look like the crown failed, given that I am also noble. Though, certainly not to the degree of King Philip, his most Catholic Majesty. But the nobility can't be seen to fall in this way. But I think after sort of an appropriate amount of time, I'm quietly removed of my title and placed elsewhere where I can't embarrass him any further, given that he trusted me to follow his orders to the letter, which I did, but to make them work, which I did not. And that cannot be forgiven.
I read another part of my small amount of research I did this morning that the real life historical character that the Duke is based on, he ended up like being put into plays and stuff as a kind of example of
we will hit that here in our afterwards, in fact.
Yeah,
so,
of lords that didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
So I feel like a lot of it's pawned off on his orders were excellent, and my execution was so bad. I must have told them to do the opposite. I mean, it looks like they tried to follow him, but clearly it's all me. It was all me.
And so we hit our afterwards. That will be the captain, then the cardinal, and then the duke. So, if you would, Lou, why don't you read the captain's afterword?
Bloop, 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 bloop.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No. It's the duke, then the cardinal, then the captain. So, Ryan, it will be you first in the afterwards.
I will forgive you for putting the captain above me, because
I should have known
as a
better.
humble servant of King Philip, I am willing to take last place. But I'll go first, if you insist. I mean, I deserve it, but I'm not going to insist on it. Despite his best attempts, the Duke of Medina Sidonia is remembered as having commanded one of the worst naval disasters in history, whether fairly or not. He continued to serve the crown for decades afterwards, with a consistent lack of success on the seas. He is eventually a target of ridicule by Miguel de Cervantes as a typical noble fool. He actually made it off better in real life than he did in my epilogue.
He did. The Church and the Inquisition remained powerful in Spain for centuries to come. The Inquisition lasted nearly 350 years, officially ending in 1834. Modern estimates are that 150,000 people were prosecuted and 5,000 were killed. Countless Jewish and Muslim families were forced to renounce their faith. Rumors persist that the Inquisition still exists to this day. Lou?
As vampire hunters. Despite the skills of these captains, nearly half the ships, 63, and 2/3 of the men, 18,000, were lost. While Spain remained the most powerful kingdom on earth, the defeat of the Armada is seen as the beginning of its decline. Rampant inflation, mismanagement, and the rise of Britain and other Protestant nations would eventually leave Spain a shadow of its past glory. The reputation of the Spanish Navy would never recover.
And that's Fire Ships at Midnight.
Yay!
I hope you had fun. If we could, let's do a little roses and thorns on it. We'll start with thorns, and I honestly, what I'd love to hear is thoughts on how it played. If you felt like it was, doing hooks, where it could be better, things that happened in it that you didn't like. Of course, we don't tend to thorn our fellow players. So, Ryan, would you be so kind as to start us off with thorns?
So I guess it's sort of a mitigated thorn, because I was going, oh yeah, I'm going to be the Duke. I'm going to be super fancy and super bad at everything. But flipping through the conflict chart, I realized that, it's only going to turn out well for me if either we have all the success all the time and everything's awesome, or if I manage to kill both of you, or myself and one of you. It's got to be pretty bad, or it's got to be super awesome. And you wouldn't let me angle it either way, which was awesome. I loved it. I was looking at my choices in every conflict going, I just have the worst plans. I'm the worst person. I hate the Duke. And I kind of love that. The going, oh yeah, I'm just going to play an incompetent villain. That'll work.
I kind of like that, like I think that's kind of cool though in the game that it's like you can feel a little bit trapped in your role that you're set. Do you know what I mean? Like the Duke can't choose to, I guess you could kind of choose to actually listen to what the person that knew what they were talking about was saying, but like that's not what the Duke's gonna fucking do, right? Like, you kind of like trapped leading because your reputation's gonna suffer at home if you're not seen to be the person actually leading and giving orders. Like, yeah.
Like, I could have tried really hard to just go with the best ideas and let the captain take the reins every time, and it wouldn't have favored me. So why would I do that? And yeah, I love how the game suggests, no, really, your reputation is most important. Fuck these guys over. Just do it.
I don't know if that was exactly a thorn, but thank you, Ryan.
My thorn is I realized partway through that I was playing an asshole and went, well, fine then.
Lou, any thorns you might have had during course of play?
I reckon maybe that, like, I mean, I know it's, I guess this is a thorn if this was a standalone thing outside of Codex and had more space to support play. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I'm looking at it, because I know that it gets all kind of compressed and you have to be super concise with what you get in there. But I reckon it would be cool to have more descriptions of what's happening in terms of like weather and the fleet and stuff, and then maybe a little bit of like support or like for those, you know what I mean? Like some little things to kind of like in those Dungeon World starter things, how it like impressions that you can use, like when you're, and then perhaps some more like outside of your actual role, like world building or description, I think could be fun. Like I like being the captain was fun, and it was within their knowledge describing the, I guess it could still be even within character, like how is the faith of the flock working at this time, and like, do you know what I mean? And I don't know how are your personal stores and comfort holding up on the at this part of the journey or something? Like, do you know what I mean? Like health of the fleet, faith of the fleet, and personal like
I definitely hear you. And you're correct, of course, that you condense it down to be in the magazine, to be small in there. But I often felt like there was not enough to, so for my thorns, I often worry there's not enough for players to hang on to make the characters full. And I want it to be a role player, so I don't know if I give enough out there all the time for there to be the role-playing aspects of it. I've seen it go several ways, but in its rather small, compressed state, I hope it gives that, but I've always wondered about that. So there's a thorn for me, from me.
I found it very easy to jump into a role in this because of that whole thing of you're kind of like, you're a little bit, especially as a captain, I guess, you're a little bit trapped in what you're like. It's kind of inevitable. You're going to give good advice and it will probably be ignored.
So let's move to roses real quick and I'll start with you, Lou, and we'll go to Ryan and then end with me, because I have some thoughts to wrap it up and I want to hear what y'all think of them. So, Lou, any roses to hand out for the session, for the system, for me, for your fellow players?
Yeah, I guess I'll just double down on that and say that it at least with the captain role, it was really easy. I guess also like with like a small amount of like research I did this morning that I was able to bring into it was kind of fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like to like make myself feel a bit knowledgeable or something in that role, because you kind of want to know what you're actually talking about as the captain, I guess. Like, I guess that could be like if it was an actual, you know, as the book grew and ended up being a whole massive RPG book. Like, I guess that's another thing you could be like, this would be super sound.
Cool,
like
cool.
advice, like an example of good advice to give. But yeah, I found it very easy. I mean, it's also you guys being really good players that it helped me to speak in like character really easily, and that was like fun for me because I often end up, like, you guys have played with me before, I tend towards describing what my character's doing and saying rather than actual like being in the like character as much. But I found it easy, whether that was the system like or the players. It's sometimes a bit hard to separate those things.
Well, you were certainly all over it. Thank you very much. Ryan, roses?
I have so many roses. I mean, it's like a first episode of The Bachelor here. So rose 2, I guess. The game. Wait, Tyler for writing the game and then for being here. I'm not sure if it was the fact that I'm playing with really awesome people or if it's just that it's a really awesome game. Although I've played it twice, and it is hard to overstress that this game is so fucking fun. I mean, I was a little bit worried when I read the first pitch because I was going, oh, I don't know anything about that. And yet I feel like this game gives me enough to hang on that I'm like, okay, yeah, I totally know what's going on here. Like Lou was saying earlier, the little descriptions give you enough flavor that you've got an idea of what they're dealing with, and you can...
And 2 of the roles, you're not meant to actually know what the fuck's going on anyway.
Yeah. And it's written so that, I mean, I played the captain before, and I totally felt like I was the only sane man in this ship of fools that was just gonna explode. And this time, I was like, yeah, there's some good ideas here, but there's mechanical incentive for me to pick a really stupid one every time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make a bad choice. I'm going to double down. And yeah, it guides you into playing the characters very well. It gave me enough of a summary of who I was playing and how they are inevitably going to fail that I felt pretty confident doing that. And the way that it sort of makes, yeah, this isn't going to go well for any of you, so fight. It feels like you can be antagonistic to each other in a way that's not antagonistic to other players, where I'm like, yeah, playing a villain is fun, but that can go kind of sour. And here it's like, yeah, you're all at cross purposes. Nothing's going to go well. You're all going to fail, and the king's going to blame you. Fight. And yeah, sabotage seems fun. Rose, especially for Lou, straight up calling me on my shit and telling me that I have stupid ideas and I'm a bad person and he's fucking off to Ireland, because that was so awesome and I loved it. I'm like,
I guess that was kind of the part where I guess it was where that guy saw his reputation coming from, and I think it might have actually been with the crew and the other people that were real soldiers rather than the like nobility. Like his respect and stuff was coming from below maybe rather than above.
Yeah, I mean, part of that's the game. Part of that's that Lou is super awesome, but a special rose for just that blowing up at me.
That was also just bleed from what I'm like in real life. I'm like, nah, that's bullshit. I'm like, that's a dumb idea.
I'm so glad you played the captain. And Rose also, to what Lou called the best Southern Spanish preacher, because I hadn't realized I wanted Tyler to be the creepy cardinal so hard. But I loved every one of your speeches.
I knew straight away that I wanted him to play that role.
Yeah. I was saying in the chat, like, I already hate the cardinal after he said like 2 words. And I hate myself. I love the captain so much. I hope he's okay. and I feel like the game angles toward that so much. And I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. My roses, first off, I really appreciate y'all like really hopping into this. We got, it felt like good role playing in. I felt like the characters kind of came alive and were doing neat stuff. So huge bouquets of roses to both of you for amazing play. If you hear a growling, it's not my tummy, it's the dog. I'm going to give a rose. Just, you know, I always hesitate to give myself a rose, but I'm going to give a rose because I think that having watched people play, now finally playing it myself, I think there's the potential to play it multiple times, which was a worry I had, that you'd play it once, you'd never want to play it again. But I think there's a little bit of playing it where you could start angling things and you could play the different characters. And I think that's kind of fun. I didn't want it to be like a board game where it was just, you know, mechanic, and that's what you're pulling out. I think it does a pretty good job of making sure the role plays there. And that makes me happy. So I'm rosing myself like a terrible, selfish bastard I am.
Awesome. Yeah, I was I looked at a couple of really beautiful kind of maps / infograms of like the Spanish Armada, like, you know, so with like where they came up and like where they met the like other half of their force in France, and then like there's this map that tracks their route around the top of Scotland and down, and it totally made me start picturing a like of these like the conflicts or whatever, like mapped out on a map like that, you know, like Fall of Magic-esque like pathway. And then like in terms of like a replay thing, like, you know, that when you cross the ocean on in Fall of Magic, there's the cards that you like shuffle, and so the islands, because it's the Sea of Mist or whatever, and the islands change every time. I guess in terms of replayability, there's heaps more like history there too, in terms of being able to grab some other moments out of the history potentially and make it like a you know, randomize the where
That's
things
true.
happen a bit. But, I mean, it doesn't, that's not just complicating it. It's totally like a little game and works really well as that. But I also just totally want there to be a map because I love maps.
I think the fact that you can play a really satisfying game of it in, you know, 2 hours tops.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of replay value, because I'm like, it's not a hard sell for me to go like, oh yeah, I've got 2 hours to burn. I'll play a different role. I'll play a different strategy. This time I'm going to try to die or whatever. And it's awesome.
Yeah,
and if you fleshed it out into a 50-page RPG, I'd probably read it still.
And the three player thing too is like cool. Like 2 hours on 3 players. There's not like heaps of games where you can do that, I guess. Like,
cool. I'm glad to hear that. Well, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you both so much for playing. I really had fun. I hope you did too. Folks that happen to be watching, there are a lot more things that I put up, so watch more!